the story. So it's actually also storytelling that which can benefit your as I said, support teams, ASR teams. It can benefit your management, executive boards. There can be so many people, so many teams across your organization that can benefit from visual storytelling. And the better you make it, the more intriguing it becomes for the person who is using or consuming that content. Because you may have like very basic panels giving out very basic information, but to make it visually compelling is an art. It's like how you draw a very basic diagram, and then how you kind of do an advanced version of it with I don't know, with pastel color or with watercolors. Similarly, you put in more colors and it becomes visually appealing. So that is also a very important aspect. Okay, I think it's going to rain in Pune. Secondly, dashboards offer context, clarity, insights. So you can also look at different kinds of data on a single pane of glass, not just from one data source, but from multiple. You can put all that together and make a complete picture which makes sense. It's like putting in different pieces of puzzles together, so that once they all fit in, it makes the real perfect picture. And then Dashboard Studio brings powerful visual storytelling tools. It has several tools, as I said, several enhancements from the classic version. It's very easy to drag and drop and do all that as well. So I will be sharing some of that right now in the demo that we have planned. But yeah, I feel that if you compare that with classic, as I said, some features are missing. I'll give you an example. I can use timeline in a classic dashboard, but I can't use a timeline in a dashboard studio. So that is a limitation that I have seen. So there are several such limitations. And but still, the kind of features that Dashboard Studio provides is amazing. And I feel that for starters, if your dashboard does not require some features which are not present, then you can use a Dashboard Studio. Otherwise, stick to classic XML. Some of this, what is Dashboard Studio and all that, I've already explained. It has JSON source code editing. So instead of XML with classic, you use JSON. You can edit it. There are certain visualization options that you have, which you can also modify, much like you could do in XML. It's just that the file itself has to be valid. It has to conform to the XML standards, or if it is using JSON, then it has to conform to the JSON standards. So the JSON tree has to be properly made. If it is not, then obviously it's going to throw you an error, or you'll not be able to save it. This is an example, or rather comparison of features that Classic and Dashboard Studio are providing. UI customizations, Classic has very basic. If you really wanted custom components, then some of you may know, even earlier with HTML, you had to do CSS scripts and JavaScript and all that, which is now not required with Studio. Source wise, it's XML for Classic and JSON for Dashboard Studio. Chaining and inputs. So chaining is now a new term, I would call it, which they say in Dashboard Studio. So essentially linking one search to the other is what is called chaining. So essentially you may have different generating commands and then different streaming commands, but you actually ideally want to have the common part of the generation search in the base search, as we also used in classic dashboards. But then you will have an option to chain that search to a transforming command, which may be like a time chart or a stats or whatever you may want to do. And you can also add or include additional logic if it is relevant for a particular panel. And that way you can chain input. So obviously that was also present in XML, but with Dashboard Studio, there are some additional options. And in terms of performance, it depends on for Classic, you had to as I said, the more complex it got for Classic in XML, the lesser options you had for making a visually compelling dashboard. You could like do copy paste of icons and stuff, but again, it was kind of complex. You couldn't really do a drag and drop, for example, for a background image, which you can do for dashboard in case of a Dashboard Studio. And for Dashboard Studio, the rendering is pretty optimized, as I'm going to show. Okay, I'll take a quick pause. Any questions or that any one of you may have? And then quickly I'll check for Rohit. Yeah, I think he's here. All right. So I'm assuming silence means a no. But yeah, please don't mind asking questions. Also, when I share the demo, in case you have anything, I will be happy to answer the questions. Now for components, as you can see, so when I say the components, I can also show you from my demo. So, for example, if I open, I can show you from here itself. So when you go to an edit, generally on a video you will have a set of icons here, and this is actually the Dashboard Studio toolbar, where you have a set of that you can choose from. I'll actually go back to the presentation, but I'll come back to this at a later point of time. This is what I've tried to explain here, that what options do we have for inserting or selecting a certain component. And it is very important because throughout the course of building a dashboard in Dashboard Studio, you will be using one of these options. If you're using the UI, it's kind of difficult to excuse me, excuse me, it's kind of difficult to build a dashboard ground up from a JSON. Obviously one can do it, but idea is to make it simpler for power users or for users who want to build a dashboard to be able to easily do UI. And honestly, I have never used or built a dashboard from scratch using a JSON, because it's so easy from the UI, and then you can also look at the JSON source and understand what really each part of the layout means, what each of the visualizations signify. So the first thing here, this one, is a visualization selector. So here you will have an option like chart, pie, or bar, or a line, all the visualization options that are there as a part of Dashboard Studio. As I said, some visualization options are not there. So timeline being an example. I don't know if someone of you may have used it in Dashboard Studio with not sure, like a custom thing that you may have generated for Splunk Enterprise, because sometimes you can do all that. But yeah, the timeline visualization itself is not there by default as a part of the product. But yeah, that this option gives you the option. This from here you can select which kind of chart or which kind of panel you want to build. What is the visualization type? Second thing is filter. So this one is filter or inputs, you may call it. So if you are putting in like a global time selector, or like a, I don't know, a drop down or a multi select, or I don't know, a bullet point and all that. So you can have filters put in here. Obviously, each of the filters can either be static or dynamic. You can fill in data there using search queries, or you can put in static values. So for example, if you have a country drop down, you can put in a static country drop down, because that need not have a search powering it. But eventually that's the idea, that if you want to filter the panels based on a certain input, then you put in that input, or filling a drop down, or multi-select box there. You have this thing, very cool thing, I would say, called icon selector, where you have an option to either upload an icon in the on the dashboard in any of the panels, or you can use from pre-existing set of icons, like, I don't know, thumbs up or red warning, red error or warning, all that you can do. So that is very nice, because it's coming out of the box for the product. Then you have a shape selector as well. So you can put in a rectangle. So let's say that you want a different color scheme for your dashboard, not really the one that comes. So basically, for a Dashboard Studio, for a panel, you can select a background. You can have like a background color like black or white. You also have an option to select the theme. If you want it to be light, then you select it as light. If you want it to be dark theme, then you select it as dark theme. But all those things have very little scope of customization. You may also want opacity in your dashboard, right? So some part of it looks darker, some part of it looks lighter. Having that kind of a customization sometimes becomes important, and that's why you can put in a rectangle for a panel, and then you make your dashboard transparent. So whatever is your rectangle's color or background image, you can actually use that, and the panel will be shown on top of it, which makes it visually good. Then you have an image selector as well, so you can upload images to your dashboard as required. Then there is a markdown text. If you want to put in some text on your dashboard panels, you can put in there, like you may have headers on panels, or you may have also a header for the dashboard. Excuse me. So you can use all that to put in there. And then you have the gear icon, this one, which is conf settings. From there you will be able to see different options that you have for each visualization type. So for example, pie will have a different sort of conf settings, rectangle will have different sort of conf settings, a markdown text will have different sort of conf settings, so on and so forth. For each panel you can actually look, when you click on a panel, you'll be able to see the different conf settings. Then you have a data source option. Now this is the place where the dashboard gets all its data from. It can have multiple types of data. You can have, like as I said, a primary data source, and then you can chain or perform search chaining, which means that you generate the data once and not really multiple times, and then from the generated data you can have panels that kind of transform the generated data. That is like the premise. Now if you're having different data sources, then you can create one base search for each, and then you can chain the transformations that you want to achieve on each of those base searches using or replicating them. I will also show you all that from the demo that I've built. Then there is a code section. Now this, if you click here, it will the JSON file itself. As I said, sometimes things like if you really have a CI/CD pipeline in your organization, and you want to leverage that and then put in a JSON file in your code repository, then things like having a dark or a light theme also is important that you put in the code, because I've seen that if you select light theme or dark theme, it doesn't really show up in the code, in the JSON code. But you have an option to put in a theme attribute in the where you put in the title and everything. You also put the theme, and then it kind of takes it. So there are some of those customizations which do not show up on the source, but then if you really want to use CI/CD and push your dashboard code through GitLab, or I don't know, Bitbucket, or whatever source code control you may have, you can leverage this, and you can also understand how the JSON structure is. Then there is a documentation link. There is a page zoom option. You can use full screen. You can use a certain percentage. This is the theme selector, as I said, either dark or light. And then you have an option to save and then view the dashboard. Any questions on the content shared so far?
Rafiq this side.
Yes, Rafiq.
I joined very late, so I was going to the
Mm,
slide where you were comparing this what we call it, a classic and their this dashboard studio kind of parameters.
yeah,
My question is related to a number of line with the source. Okay, when we go back to the
yeah.
classic, the XML source contained a certain number of line for XYZ dashboard. Okay,
Mm.
so does this number of line get exceeded when it's transformed to dashboard studio as your source is in JSON? It
Okay, so
become
you mean when I'm converting from XML, which is an option that
no,
is
no, it's a
provided by
general,
Splunk.
general, it's a general question that I have
Mm,
existing my XYZ dashboard. XML source code is having 100 lines. Okay. So I'm not
Mm.
transforming. If I build the same content over the classic dashboard, will that length of the line will be exceeding, or how much?
Well, in general, what I've seen is that JSON dashboard codes can be very lengthy. I really have not compared the same XML and then have created a similar dashboard with Dashboard
Yeah,
Studio and then compare.
my question just
Mm.
hover around because there are a lot of options you are showcasing. Can you jump to the next slide? Because
Yeah, yeah.
this option make more that JSON source more lengthier as compared to the XML source, because all this lot
You
of
mean
option will feed up in the JSON, right?
Yes, yes, correct. So obviously, any additional, so for example, having a layout, defining a layout, whether it's grid or absolute, you add certain amount of lines, which wasn't a feature available with classic dashboards. So
Hmm.
since there are additional features, there will be additional lines. But in terms of, doing an apple to apple comparison between an XML based dashboard and a JSON dashboard, and which one will be lengthier, I honestly feel that if I use the same components and stuff, I still feel that JSON will be lengthier. But yeah, as you said correctly, the more options that Dashboard Studio it provides, it obviously is a case that the code will be lengthier because of including all these components in there.
Thank you.
Anything else from anyone, or you, Rafik?
That's it from my side.
Okay, thanks. So this brings me to the point of layouts, something that we earlier didn't have. Now this was created to be to make layouts responsive if I really wanted it to. So I may need to watch or view a dashboard on his mobile screen as well. Or I'm so the need for the dashboard screen to adapt. Also, for me to be able to customize my dashboard with pictures, images, icons, multiple options, right? So having that ability to be able to do that, and that is why different kinds of layouts are created for Dashboard Studio. There are two. One is an absolute layout, and one is a grid layout. Now, um, as I was saying, I'll quickly move to the absolute. Yes. So with absolute, it's very easy for you to drag and drop. It doesn't follow a rigid structure or a pattern in terms of in case of grid, if I give you an example, once you define the height, width, and all that, the x position, the y position of a component or a panel, it kind of gets bound by the grid and it cannot really go beyond. But with absolute, you can always move it even canvas, and you can design it the way you want. You can make it smaller, bigger. But with grid, there are certain limitations in terms of how you can make it pixel perfect, but it can adapt to the screen size. So absolute is ideal for custom designs and static screen displays. Layout remains fixed across screen sizes, so the layout doesn't really change if you have different, like if you have a laptop, if you have a larger desktop monitor, or if you have I don't know, like a network operation screen as well, or if you have a mobile phone, the layout remains fixed. For grid, it auto resizes, as I said. It can adapt to the screen size and adjusts the elements accordingly. But again, there are some limitations with regards to how beautiful you can make it. Obviously, you can also upload images here in this case, but making it pixel perfect is sometimes difficult with grid, and it's not. If you really want to make your dashboard full with a lot of icons and beautify it, so to speak, it's advisable to use absolute. But I have used both, and they're both pretty okay. Basically, based upon whatever use case for your implementation. Now, before we start or we delve deep into the build of a dashboard, I want to run through some basics. So I'm sure some of you, I may have worked with some of you. I may have been a part of some trainings with some of you. So some of you may already know me. So this is an assumption that you all have a basic understanding of Splunk and how to run searches in Splunk. Some of you are also advanced level, at an advanced level, so you would already know about all this. But this is for the general benefit of the audience here, that they know some of the nuances of how you can optimize searches. Doesn't take anything away from people who already know, or who may already know all these concepts. But this is just for running it through again, so that when we run or do the build of the dashboard, we keep some of these basics in mind. So as I was saying, generally with searches, so uh, obviously there are some other nuances which I will cover in the next slide. But before that, one thing that I wanted to tell you was, in general, um, search head, whether it's a standalone search head or a clustered search head, you have fewer of them, right? You have one or two or three or five, whatever, 7, 10, whatever number is required minimum, for being able to elect a captain. But still, you have very fewer number of them if you compare that to the indexers, because you generally store data in indexers and you need multiple of those servers. So search head essentially has a view of all the data, because you obviously connect the indexers to it, either through cluster manager. You directly say that, okay, this is my indexer address, and this is where you have to get the data from. But even though search head has a view of all that, um, it's advisable not to run some of the things that run specifically on search head, or may get information from the indexers but still run on the search head. It's advisable that you don't run it there. Excuse me. So the reason is that the general concept lies in the fact that you make indexers do most of the work, while you only make the search heads do what it absolutely must. Not everything needs to be done on the search head. Now, the question may arise on what really is going to run on search head and what is going to run on the indexers. How do we really know? So first of all, the generating commands like index equals whatever foo, index equals foo, and then source type equals ABC. This generates the data that you have stored in the index foo. So this essentially runs on the indexers because it has to get the data from the indexers, because again, all this is assuming that you don't really have an all-in-one instance. But even if you have like a cloud instance, cloud is going to get cloud searcher is going to get data from the cloud indexers, and then show the data to you. So this is the generation part of it, that happens already on the indexes. Then there is a streaming part of it. So there are things like lookup, eval, all that, which would run, or even fields for that matter, which would stream the data. So it is also a good thing that the streaming part, or the streaming work, is essentially done by the indexers. Then you have centralized streaming, and then transforming commands. So centralized streaming, like if you have like a lookup command where you say local equals true, so you want that to be specifically run on the search head, then that becomes centralized streaming command. And then you have a set of transforming commands, like, as I said, chart, time chart, stats, uh, stream stats, and all that. These are all streaming commands. So here is kind of a non-exhaustive list of such commands, where you have, as you can see, these are all. So you have generating the ones that start with a star, search, data model, input CV, metadata, REST, T-stats. These are all generating. Then you have this kind of connect to a NFC device icon, like transaction, sorry, not transaction, rex, spath, lookup, eval, fields. These are all streaming. Then you have set of centralized streaming commands, and then you have the transforming commands, which will all be the stats and time chart and all that. So the idea is that for as long as possible, keep running the generating and the streaming searches, or the commands, um, until it's absolutely necessary that you go to the transforming or the centralized streaming commands. Because the moment you switch to either a reporting, or rather transforming command, or a centralized streaming command, the control is handed over back to the search head, which means that the search head will now do everything else that follows. And as later as you can push that in the pipeline, that is going to be more and more beneficial in terms of search performance, especially when you're running data against terabytes. When you're running search against terabytes of data, it becomes very important because if you make your indexer cluster, or whatever 50, 80, 100 indexes you have, if you make all of them do the work or divide up the work, it is going to be much faster and efficient. But if you have like 5, 10 search heads, if you make them do the work, it's going to be telling on the search heads, they will have an impacted performance. So this is a concept that I personally didn't know of earlier. I had no clue. But yeah, during some of the trainings with regards to Splunk, I got to learn them, and that's why I wanted to share. Maybe all of you have attended, or if you haven't, then this is a concept that I think will be important. There are some other things which I will show you. Um, Okay, maybe I'll go through some of the content that I've written as well. They can only, I think I've explained some of this, that it holds the full data set locally if indexer and in a standalone mode, but we're not talking about standalone mode. In distributed setup, indexes lack the full data picture, so they avoid stateful or transforming commands. We can't run a stats or a time chart on an indexer because it does not have full picture of the data. If we could, then I would have suggested that let's run there itself, but we can't. And that's why when it's absolutely required that you need to transform your data, you run it on you run the transformation. But before that, try to make sure that you have all the generating commands and your centralized streaming commands before the centralized streaming and the transforming commands. This is again an example of search dispatch behavior in terms of how or which commands fall in which category. Um, Try to use these, again, non-exhaustive list. Try to use this first, followed by this, unless you must use some of this. So that is what is explained as well. This is an example. From So this thing where you're talking about performance is actually categorized into one is called remote search, and then other is called report search. Remote search is the search that you run on the indexers. When you actually look at the search job properties as well, you will be able to see that the remote search is a certain sort of commands, and then report search is doing the transformation, as you can see from here. uh, so the idea always remains that when you have generated it, and if there is nothing else that is to be done, then you can run the transformation. It is okay. But if you have additional processing that you can do before it, then you should ideally try it, and that will improve the performance a lot. Here is a search efficiency comparison. I don't have the data for this per se. For me to be able to show you, at least this requires like really huge data to be present. My dev setup is a very small one. Obviously, I think even if there is a difference, it will be very minuscule for me to be able to share it with you. But understand the basic idea that if you have an index, and then you have some other filters like location, excuse me, and then you're immediately after you're putting in a stats, which means that now the transfer will be made to, or the control will be passed to the search heads. Then if you are doing any of the streaming commands like lookup or eval and all that, then these are not going to benefit the performance because they will all run on the search head. Now, how you should ideally do it is you have an index, you have the location, then you do the lookup itself. So kind of let's call it data enhancement or enrichment, because you're adding the price. So you add the price, you do the evaluations. If there are any mathematical calculations, you do all that, and then finally you do your stats, because in that case, um, till this stats, everything else will be done on the indexers, and the more indexers you have, the better your data split is generally, depending upon your search and replication factors. It is going to be able to respond to your query and give you an answer back. uh, I've written the same here. Look up an eval post before stats, so indexers do more work, and lower load on the search head, which means faster performance. So don't make your searches search head heavy. Make them indexer heavy. That is the idea. Any other any questions on this with remote search and report search? Okay, I guess not. I'll quickly move back. I really hope that this session is beneficial for you, and whatever you learn here, you can apply some of these principles at your work, because I honestly have gained like really good improvement in performances, in dashboard performances, when I learned some of these things. Obviously, I knew about post processing searches in classic dashboards as well. That allows that you could have a base search and refer to that base search in all your subsequent searches or subsequent panels. This also, Dashboard Studio also gives you that option. But yeah, this thing about running it on indexers and then searches is something that I was able to utilize only at a later point of time in my career. Some of these techniques, I'll quickly run through them. As I said, most of you, I'm sure you already know this, but in case you don't, just consider it as a recap of things that you already know, or if you don't know. So index equals and source type equals include that. So generate your command early, generate your data early, and have as many identifiers as possible in the first, before the first pipe. That really helps narrow down. So if you do an index equals star, it's going to search through all the data stores. The moment you do index equals foo, it will know that, okay, it only has to look in foo. And then even inside foo, it only will be able to searching through a certain source type called bar. So if bar is there, then you know that, okay, it only has to go through bar. It doesn't have to go through the other source types that may be present within foo. So narrow the data set as early as possible and as much as you can. Apply time range filters, use earliest, latest, have smaller time ranges. I really have never seen that it is important or beneficial if you're looking at the last 1 year data. Honestly, Splunk is not meant for that. Even for real time, if you are looking at last 1 minute or 5 minute data, that still would serve the purpose. But real time searches is strict no. In fact, most companies have that disabled by default, because they don't want users searching real time. That's like a performance killer, and it occupies one CPU all the time. So use your time range judiciously. Having 30, 60 days, unless it is a very critical business case and you have or you must do it, don't do that. Filter with fields where or search, eliminate unnecessary data early by filtering only what's needed. Something that I've already explained. Use fields. So if you really don't want all the fields that are extracted by default, or if you may have like field extractions on your search head, you can simply skip the unnecessary stuff and just keep the fields that are required for you, and do that as early as possible as well in the search, so that your data set will be limited to those fields, and then Splunk has to do lesser and lesser work trying to get all the information from the logs all the time. Move eval before stats wherever possible. This is something that I just explained. Eval is a centralized streaming command. So sorry, it's a streaming command. So make sure that you use eval before you use a transformation command that makes it run on the indexers rather than search head. Lookup before stats, the same reason. Avoid join wherever possible. This is something that I never do. Worst case, probably an append, or have all source types with an or, and then do a concoction of that, and then use a transformation to really filter what I need from each of the source types. Generally, it's used for correlation or looking at multiple source types, but there are different ways of doing it as well. Obviously, with time, this kind of builds up on how you can, but try and avoid join as much as possible. Use tran command, stats, time charts, or over raw results, more efficient and scalable than returning raw events. Yes, generally the idea is that you should be able to transform your data and see something out of it. Just the raw events don't really make a lot of sense. So yeah, since you are going to need it anyway, it's better to use stats, time chart, all the transformations you can, instead of just looking at raw data, because that doesn't really tell a story. Limit results if you can. Limit your results. Use t-stat very, if you're only looking at some like a count kind of thing, I don't know, there could be multiple things. But if you really want your research results, and if you're going through like huge data sets, and if you're looking at just count kind of things, or looking at information for a certain source type. So for example, if you were to look at a heavy forwarders throughput, right? So you do not really need to run an index equals underscore internal and then do source type. You can simply run a tstats. Heavy forwarders would also share or forward their internal logs to the indexers. So just run a tstats on that particular index and then define your filters, like where source type equals this, and that, since it runs on the index files, it's much faster than looking at the raw data for everything. So again, an advisable thing, a very important detail, but in most cases related to Splunk's internal troubleshooting, I tend to use tstats because it makes my life much more easier. Report accelerations and repeated searches, things like, maybe I don't want to go through this entire list, like having summary searches, report acceleration, data model acceleration. These are all like the best techniques, which some of you may already know of. Okay, now we will have to head to the demo. Okay, we have little time left, but I'll try to quickly show of hands if you're able to see my screen, which is this. It's a dashboard for application health monitoring. Let me. Can anyone confirm that they're able to see the screen with dashboard? I have screen, so I'm hoping so. I really hope that I've not put everyone to sleep. Is my screen visible? The dashboard screen.
It is to.
Yeah, it is visible.
It's visible.
Okay, great. Thanks. Thanks for that confirmation. I for once thought that I lost my Bluetooth connectivity with my headset. It sometimes happens. Okay, so this is the dashboard. So first things first, if you want to really build a dashboard, you can. Hang. So I happen to install this 9.4.2. I think it's the latest version. I shouldn't have done that, but anyway, I was building a demo thing anyway. So you go to dashboards. You can simply say click a new create a new dashboard. Create a new dashboard, and then you will have an option to say, okay, I want to create with a classic or as a classic dashboard or dashboard studio. You can give it a proper title, a description, whether you want to keep it as private or want to share it with an app or globally, and then you can click create. The moment you do that, it will create a canvas like structure like this. So this, the one that I've created, actually an absolute layout. It is not a grid layout. So it comes, it is very flexible. Now with an older version of Splunk, you didn't have options to also create tabs, but now I don't know since when, but with this new version, I mean, in my org, I use an older version, slightly older version. They don't have this option, but you can also create a multi-tab dashboard. This is also an excellent feature to have, that was earlier not present. So what you can do is you can obviously first define your canvas, how big or small you want it. You can obviously change it, update it. So to get an option related to any of these panels, you have to click on it. So for example, right now I'm clicking on the canvas itself. So you see it's saying that, okay, I have a canvas layout, it's an absolute, my size is, my width is this, my height is this, I have a background color which is this, and then I also had the option to choose a background image. Can be an image of your choice or your choosing, and you can simply put it there. Now this really makes it clear, if you have that option to directly do a drag and drop of background images, which really makes it interesting. Otherwise, if you have a dark or theme, you have to stick to that, or you have to choose the background colors, black, white, yellow, whatever you want. Obviously it has to be comfortable for everyone to see the dashboard and the data. So this at the top here is a filter. So you can choose that. This is something that I showed to you earlier. So you can say that whether I want a drop down or a multi-select or a text or number, whatever you want. You can also have like a plain text box here where you can type in some information, like, I don't know, like a correlation ID, for example. And correlation ID would be present in multiple services, so you can search with correlation IDs as well. which is a cool thing to have. So that's one. Obviously, there are other filters. So here I have a time filter. Here, as I was saying, this is the visualization type. So in some of these cases, now this, as you can see, text. So this, can anyone tell me from each of these, where would have I got it? I mean, some of the options are here, but maybe you can tell me. This is application service health monitoring. I wanted to put in this text on the dashboard. So what options did I have? Okay, I'm assuming that you were not able to follow this. So there is a markdown text, as I said. So you can actually add this as if you want to add text in any part of the dashboard, then you can simply select this, put it in here. You have an option to make it a link or bold, or you can choose the type of the font. And there are multiple things, as you can see, that you can put in here. So you can simply put that here, and this will create like a panel for you, a small panel inside a panel, which is good. Here, now the thing is that, when you're trying to do like a simple thing like a single value, this is a single value, right? So you have a time chart where you're looking at certain trend. I don't know, a trend for 4xx data, or how many times you have seen 400, 401, or 404 errors in a certain service log. So I wanted to make it visually appealing, so I could have simply kept this and put in a markdown text, but I rather chose some colors. Also, wanted to tell you guys that this is taken from a sample from Dashboard Hub. I will show you what Dashboard Hub is as well, because it will really help you. But this is also taken from Dashboard Hub, and some of the ideas are taken from there. But you can also implement some of these ideas in your own customized version of your dashboard. So you put in a markdown text. So here all these things are markdown texts: 5xx, xxx, 4xx. Then you also have this small band kind of thing, color band, purple, blue, green, yellow, red. So all these are your shapes. So this thing that I had shared with you, an ellipse, a rectangle, or a line, you can put in any of these are rectangles. So you can very easily say, okay, what my rectangle's height will be, what my rectangle's width will be. So put it in there, the kind of rectangles you want. Or if you want to put in like a line after a certain heading, you want to put in a line, you can also do that. It's very flexible that way, where you have an option to put in the shapes that you prefer. And then at the bottom you have your actual single value graph, where you put in a search. So here I want to now go to the settings thing. So if the moment I click this, you will see that this is by default clicked, which means that every time I click this, it actually goes to the settings for that particular option that I've chosen from the top toolbars. So what I really want to do is now customize this, right? So you will see that first is it asks for a visualization type. So I can always say, if I really want to create a new one, I'll just go here and go to this and say I want to create a single value. But if I want to edit it, just click there and say, okay, I want to create a single value visualization. Now that needs to be powered by a source. So there is the data source option. I could have also provided a title or a description, but I haven't, since I already have like a title here. And here you have an option to create a data source or edit it or remove it. So this second option here removes the data source. This one edits it. So if I click edit, it's going to open an edit data source option. So here you see that there is a base search and then an HTTP_3xx search. What this means, this is very similar to the classic XML dashboard option, where you could use a base search. Here also the idea is the same, that you create your index and then you create your fields, or you can just create your index, whatever it might be. In my case, fields was required because otherwise I was not able to list or do a time chart on I mean, the chained search didn't have a view of the fields, and henceforth it was a problem. But even if it's just a generating command, that's still sufficient. And then you can actually chain that with all your searches. So if you actually go to the dashboard, the data sources, you will see, hang on, you will see that there is a base search. You can actually, if you want to edit the base search itself, you can sources, and then you can click the pencil icon here. You can remove it as well, and then here you have the option. It's not disabled here. So you edit it, and then if you want to put in a time range, then you can say static, default, whatever. If it's an input, so I want to say that, okay, whatever I select from here should be the value chosen as my timestamp, then it's input, and then you can save this. So essentially that is how you do your base search, and then each chain search can actually follow the base search. So as I was saying, for one particular data source, you can have one base search and then multiple chain searches. So you just have to say create chain search, and the moment you say create chain search, it's going to ask for a search name, data source name. So it can be, I don't know, let's call it HTTP 3xx or 4xx or 5xx. That will be my search name. I can select a parent search, which is a list of all my base searches, and then I can say so it will by default, let me select one here. So it will by default bring me the content of the base search, and then I can put in the transformations here. So it is that simple. You really don't have to do much in terms of implementation. Okay, and I think now we're close to the time as well. I'll rush through this. So this is very simple. The moment or get a hang of how you can put in markdown text, rectangles, squares, or whatever lines. This is also a single value with a trend, so that there is a spark line at the bottom. This is your status codes split by time for the last 60 minutes. You can actually go and see what status codes were there. This is a line search. Again, you select your line option or whatever kind of visualization you want. You select it there. You need to have, so this is again a count thing, right? So on one axis you have timestamp, and on the other axis you have the count of HTTP status code. This is something that is being displayed here. And then you have some marker gauges here, which show what is the availability of a particular service. It's 19, and then these are all, by the way, random data that are generated as a part of the script. And then you have also a list of active users. Again, this search just returns a number from 1 to 100, so it can be anything. And right now it's 97, so it depends upon the log that was ingested, and then the number of active users. You also have a chart, a column chart, where you have memory or CPU usage. Again, this is this will result. So once you click this pencil icon, if you really want to see which search powers this, so there are two ways. One is either you can click here this open in search, which will open this thing, the panel in search, and you can see the results that were generated or created as a part of this. We'll wait for this. And then in the meantime, if you just click view, so now this is not in the edit mode. The moment you hover on any of the panels, you will see that there is a magnifying glass, which you can also click, and this will also give you the same search along with the results that you have for CPU and memory. So it's that simple. You can actually open a search either from the data source options. So you have the data source here, go to the data source and run it. Any of the data sources, you can simply click the pencil icon and then open in search, and it will show you the search that powers it. But make sure that whenever you're building a dashboard, you have the base search and the transformations for each panel. So base search define that once, so that it runs only once. It doesn't run every time each of the panels load. But the transformation can run multiple times. That is completely fine, because it doesn't fetch all the information from the indexers again, and that is one important performance benefit that you will get if you use these base searches or if you chain the searches. And yeah, the JSON is here. In case anybody is interested, you can actually do look at the dashboard and understand what each of these means. So here you have a set of data sources, and then which visualizations are powered by which, the viz ID here that you will see, and then for each of the viz ID, what are the visualizations that power that viz ID. If there is a primary data source, then it says primary, and then if it is powered by a chain search, then it also says so accordingly. It also has information related to colors and background colors and images, image paths, etc. If you're interested, you can simply open this and see. The other options are looking at, if you want to look at the documentation for this, which is from here. And then these options are pretty standard. If you really want to view or change the mode from dark to light, you can do that. Or if you want to increase or decrease the magnification of the of how it should be, then you can simply say, let's say, fit, click view. So now it will be in a black theme, in a white theme, which I honestly don't like. Okay, so this takes me now to the end of this presentation. Now we are almost at time, 1 minute past, in fact. So I request you, if there is any question, please shoot. Otherwise, I don't know, if you want, you can start a discussion on the page itself, on the meeting, on the event page. If you go, there is a discussion forum where you can start a discussion. I will be happy to answer any question that you may have. Let's take a quick 1 minute pause. Any questions? Because I think some of you have dropped off as well because we are past time. But yeah, just let me know if you have anything to ask. I will be uploading this presentation as well to the page. It will already be available to the Pune user group page or to the YouTube as well. I will share that on my LinkedIn. If you guys are interested, then please go ahead and have a look if you want to revisit some of the concepts that were explained here. Okay. Cool. Thanks, guys. I wish you all a pleasant rest of the day wherever you are, and thank you so much for joining. Bye.